Can a 10-year-old budget king handle a brand new, modern heavy hitter? Welcome back, everyone. Today, we are putting one of the most iconic budget gaming laptops of all time, the Dell Inspiron 7559, to what was supposed to be the ultimate hardware survival test. We are attempting to benchmark the newly released prologue for Patrice Désilets' long-awaited masterpiece, 1666, Amsterdam. This game is a gorgeous, dark, multi-timeline Unreal Engine 5 title that just dropped on Steam. It is a game that technically demands hardware ray tracing and modern VRAM just to function. Our challenger today? The trusty Intel Core i5-6300HQ, an aging NVIDIA GeForce GTX 960M, and 16 GB of older DDR3 Ram. Can we even get this next-gen, witchcrafting, cat-shifting title to run at a playable frame rate? Well, spoiler alert, we couldn't even get past the desktop. The game completely crashes on startup, and it doesn't even get the chance to reach the main menu. Let's break down the technical wall our legendary laptop just slammed into. The Dell Inspiron 7559 came out way back in late 2015. Our configuration features the 4-core, 4-thread i5-6300HQ. It's paired with the Maxwell architecture GTX 960M. Ours is the 4 GB VRAM model, and 16 GB of dual-channel DDR3 Ram. Now, look at the official minimum requirements for 1666, Amsterdam. The developers explicitly call for an Intel Core i7-10700K or an AMD Ryzen 5 3600 just for the processor. On the graphics side, they mandate an RTX 2060 Super or an AMD Radeon RX 6600. But the biggest kicker in the fine print is right here. An SSD is required, and hardware-level ray tracing with at least 8 GB of VRAM is strictly required. On paper, our little GTX 960M is entirely missing the fundamental core architecture required to build the engine's pipeline. When you click Play on Steam, the system attempts to initialize the game's executable, and that is where the tragedy immediately begins. The moment you try to boot the game, you hit launch, the screen goes black for a fraction of a second, and then, boom, right back to the desktop, accompanied by a generic Unreal Engine 5 crash reporter window. No intro cinematics, no developer logos, and absolutely no main menu. 1666. Amsterdam is built strictly on a modern DirectX 12 pipeline, utilizing features that simply do not exist in legacy APIs. While the GTX 960M technically supports DirectX 12 at a feature level of 11_0, it completely lacks the hardware capabilities to handle modern execution paths like asynchronous compute and shader model 6.6, which modern Unreal Engine 5 titles rely on to compile shaders before the main menu even renders. The second major bottleneck causing this instantaneous crash is the strict hardware ray tracing requirement. 1666. Amsterdam heavily relies on hardware-accelerated global illumination and reflections to build its highly atmospheric 17th-century environments. When the game executable polls the GPU during initialization and checks for ray tracing pipelines, our Maxwell-based GTX 960M returns a hard, not supported. Instead of falling back to a software rendering mode, the engine's rendering thread encounters a null pointer exception and instantly triggers a fatal crash to desktop. Then there is the VRAM and system memory issue. Even though our Inspiron 7559 is upgraded to 16 GB of DDR3 RAM, the memory bandwidth is severely limited compared to modern DDR4 or DDR5 systems. The game demands 8 GB of modern, fast VRAM just as a baseline. Our 960M only has 4 GB of VRAM. During the initial asset preloading phase, which happens invisibly right before the main menu appears, the game immediately runs out of video memory. When an engine tries to allocate twice the amount of physical VRAM available without proper legacy fallbacks, a driver-level crash is almost guaranteed. So, what is the final verdict for our benchmark today? Can the Dell Inspiron 7559 with its GTX 960M and i5-6300HQ run 1666, Amsterdam? The definitive answer is a resounding no. It doesn't just run poorly, it flat-out refuses to exist on this hardware. This is a clear, definitive sign of the times. For nearly a decade, this laptop has been an absolute champion, defying expectations and running games it had no business running. But with the arrival of uncompromised, next-gen Unreal Engine 5 titles that mandate hardware ray tracing and massive VRAM pools, the door is officially shutting on legacy mobile GPUs. For upcoming titles like this, the legendary Budget King has officially met its match, and it is finally time to upgrade. What do you think? Are you surprised that it completely refused to boot, or did you expect this kind of barrier for modern games? Let me know in the comments below. Leave a like if you appreciate these honest, zero-compromise hardware stress tests, and subscribe for more content. See you in the next one.